Thank you very much, Fergal, and also thank you for all the ReDICo team. And yes, so I'm very happy that Thomas already talked about coloniality, and I think you did a great job linking or talk. So from journalism, we come to content creators, and I'm gonna present a little bit of these three content creators that you see in the image. Okay, you see two. I don't know if you know them. They are based in Germany. You can see Uyen Ni, Hong Li, you cannot see, and you can see Viskel also there in the image. And there are three content creators who are, well, dealing with racialization, dealing with topics such as racism, such as otherness, such as culture. And two of them are migrants. They see themselves as migrants. And Hong Li is not a migrant. She has been born in Germany, but she is seen as a migrant, categorized as a migrant, as someone with this migratory background or migratory experiences. So they create humorous sketches, they share personal reflections, they discuss cultural comparisons, they explore and explain differences and similarities between here and there. Mostly two of them who have the experience of mobility, of migration. And in doing so, I am arguing, or I'm interested in analyzing what digital practices we can see, if we can see them as intercultural practices, and how they shape or how they are reconfiguring social imaginaries. And I am wondering if these content creators are taking an active role in configuring the process of interculturalization as well. So their content makes complex ideas about meaning and knowledge accessible and engaging. And of course, the question is who is producing and consuming this kind of content, and also in their content, what kind of reproduction of stereotypes, for instance, we see, or container thinking. And also the question is if they are also opening probably new spaces for reflection and dialogue about interculturality in this post-digital field of action. So I hope you see the change of slide. And I have many questions. I try to make the list of the questions. Some questions that I have are, of course, mixing or shaping these ideas of interculturality, intercultural communication, and digital practices. And some of these questions are how, for instance, do digital content creators with migratory experiences in Germany construct and mediate interculturality through their content on social networking sites? In what ways do these creators' practices oscillate between what we call, or what I call, dominant imaginaries, for instance, reinforcing these stereotypes, but also what Thomas was talking about is how shaping new imaginaries that I would call emergent imaginaries. For instance, this creation of new spaces where we could find critical reflection on also interculturality. Can content creators be considered as some sort of intercultural agents or intercultural mediators, even though probably at least these three, I don't know if they really see themselves as such, but they are doing it in a way and translating this taken for granted knowledge and also deconstructing it to make it plausible for others. And how might this content also provoke critical reflection and contribute to probably understanding other perspectives? And at the end, we could also think, I won't go too much into that question, but we could also think, what is the role of this sort of content for intercultural communication, right? Where we have these traditional trainings or guidebooks, and now we can just look for, we can Google it or look for a video in YouTube from someone explaining us how it is to be in, I don't know, Germany, or, these do's and don'ts in a way also, or also through this sort of content in another form. So what is the role of this shaping and in the field of intercultural communication? So I will try to be very brief into the theoretical lens, because I get very excited in talking about social imaginaries. And I will also be very brief in critical, this idea of critical postdigital interculturality, because I really want to show you the examples of some of the chosen examples of these content creators, and more than findings or conclusions, because this is an ongoing research. I just want to share some thoughts, and I will be happy for the discussion. So following Crystal Abedin, I'm not so strict in defining who is a content creator and who is an influencer. But she says, for instance, that, at the end, content creators can also be seen as influencers. And influencers are, for instance, everyday, ordinary internet users who accumulate a relatively large following on blogs and social media. Through their content they share their lives and lifestyles, and, they monetize, no? And at the end, we see that these three content creators, at least two of them, are having more followers, and their followers are increasing. And Hongle, I don't think she's so mediatic like the others, but this is also an aspect that we must have on mind, right? The content that they create, they might be monetized, and at the end they are moving in these platforms, right? And in this logic of wanting to have likes and views and all this aspect. So how I define social imaginaries, and this is important because for me, social imaginaries shape and the way that we create meaning, the way that we perceive, the way that we explain, the way that we act, and in that what we consider reality. And I say we, in terms of agents that, of course, moving in different fields of action, and in each different field of action, we can have different imaginaries shaping reality and shaping what we consider to be reality or truth. And the thing with social imaginaries is that they enable this common understanding that makes possible these common practices, because it's sort of taken for granted. It gives legitimacy. And at the end, social imaginaries are important in this reconfiguration of this common sense knowledge, in the way that we think, but also in the doing, in our practices. And this is I'm linking it with sociology of knowledge, in the ways that agents act in a routinary and pragmatic way in everyday life, and this also linking it to how, for instance, Jürgen Bolten is considering to be a culture. Then culture could be as that what we don't ask, and that can be seen as normality, as plausibility, and that we are not questioning it every time. And with this, linking the social imaginaries, and for me, social imaginaries are the lens to approach culture and interculturality, and therefore dominant imaginaries could be seen as shaping culture, shaping that what we know, that what is some sort of dominant, that is fixed and that is institutionalized, and there, of course, power plays a major role. And as dominant imaginaries, I have written about the nation, for instance, the Mexican nation, as a dominant imaginary, but you can probably see it in other examples. And now, thanks to Thomas, we also have heard about coloniality of power. Also, I approached it as a dominant imaginary, right? Shaping thinking and shaping practices. And this is in an ongoing dynamic between culture and interculturality. And Jürgen Bolten sees this as a structural processual ongoing dynamic. And here I see it also as interculturality, as he also is defining it, as these moments of uncertainty, of these questioning what is not normal, what is not taken for granted. And therefore, we see here more as a process orientation, that what is loose and that what is, for instance, emergent. No? The possibility also to imagine new ways, or the radical imaginary, following Cornelius Castoriadis, which I deleted the slides on that. And following a little bit of Catherine Walsh telling us that interculturality could be seen as a critical practice, right? As a practice of critical thinking, and that I see it also as a way of creating an emergent imaginary, where through the practice of interculturality, one can challenge colonial power structures and seeks to transform societal inequalities. It emerges also from lived experiences of subaltern groups. So it would be also a way to how we can see give voice, now how they can actually find the spaces, or we can find the spaces, and how we can see other emergent imaginaries that are not seen as normal or as evident, right? And this is also an idea of thinking interculturality not just as an interrelation or a dialogue among cultures, but really linked into these ideas of questioning power, questioning dominant imaginaries. And when doing my PhD on imaginaries of migration, I had this picture about symbolic resources reconfiguring imaginaries without the no, it was just imaginaries. But now thinking it in a deep mediatization where all elements are deeply embedded and they are ubiquitous, and we have heard a lot about this today, no? This embeddedness and this intertwined between online and offline fields of action, and how there's a continuity. No? This is what we have when we talk about postdigitality. I'm also rethinking how these symbolic resources are reconfiguring these imaginaries within this post-digital field of action, and how also the role of well-known persons about media and migrant stories are also reshaping social imaginaries. And social imaginaries, as imaginaries, no, they're linked about this electronical aspect. And this, I take the inspiration on Alberto Romele. He's talking about imagination as an electronic or digital imagination, where also algorithms play a role in shaping and reproducing imaginaries, right? This faculty that these machines have also of productive imagination, as he quotes Ricoeur, for instance. And I'm also thinking this social imaginaries in a way linked to Felix Stalder, in the way that we have some sort of references, the way also imaginaries build this common sense knowledge, no? Creating commonality between agents, and how this is also shaped by algorithmicity. So, and as I said, how this is also shaped in this affective digital capitalism, where we have a commodification of emotions and identities. And in this way, I see imaginaries as approaching post-digital everyday life as an also ongoing dynamic between these dominant and emergent interculturalization processes. And I will skip the methodology because I'm seeing the time, and I'm seeing Fergal. Again, these three content creators have the also impact not only, let's see, in their accounts, in multiple accounts, no, because they are in different platforms, but they are also reaching what we could call as other media, right? Traditional media. If I'm quoting it like this. For instance, Uyen, she was also in Galileo, no, a TV show that probably maybe people not looking their Instagram account or TikTok, probably they saw her on Galileo. No, how she has become so famous with this German stuff, or how Biskel, for instance, has become this also TikToker that is a referent, right, for Latinos in Europe. And how, for instance, they share like banal stuff, everyday life that probably somebody who is not having this normality of, for instance, dealing with German windows. At the beginning, how somebody would have a heart attack or a panic attack thinking that they broke this window, and how, for instance, Biskel coming from Venezuela or Uyen coming from Vietnam, they kind of share these common practices in Germany, having this fear, and how they will create a content, and it's a funny sketch at the end. Nah? How is also the practicals of Luften, nah? In Germany, having frische Luft, no? Or fresh air, and also dealing with this window that that seems to break for at least for them, no? And that is also kind of a German stuff, no? As they are putting it. Or also Uyen, how she show us how to dress like a Vietnamese, and she makes the whole process, the whole content, and then she had to write there, no? This is not a satire, no? She's literally what she's wearing in Vietnam, but she explains why she's wearing that kind of clothing because of the sunburn and sunstroke. It would be too hard. But this would be probably a little bit of a stereotype how we could think of a woman dressing, for instance, in Vietnam, like covering a lot from the sun. But she also has this sort of point of view, no? How through stories, and they share this point of view. And for instance, she explains how to eat in a German dinner if you have bread and this sort of cheese and all these typical German clothes. Or also how they explain how is their life in Germany, how, for instance, Biskel came to Germany, or how Uyen is dealing with winter, for instance, no? in Germany. They also have the stereotypes, like recreating how Germans observe the others, no? How they see this view, no? At the beginning, but then they also reflect, like if you say hello, they will answer like in a very nice and happy voice, like hello, no? And how they kind of they play with the stereotype, but at the end they kind of deconstruct it in the way like just come together with the person, talk to them, and then they would be approachable. No? Also sharing change and adaptation, like also Biskel, we saw him there in the bath, for instance, in a very intimate place, talking about his process, his reflection of changing. And for instance, also Uyen, like how she's a strong woman carrying the bottles, right? That some practices that she would do it in Vietnam because she's a woman, no? And how she here is also changing these gender roles. Also, this in a more critical way, the self-image or self-reflection that Biskel is doing. For instance, he in Venezuela, how he would be lighter, but how in Germany he would be approached as darker. No, and then he also shows a video how he's seen as being the only brown guy in the past. No, how sometimes he's seen as an exotic person or with fear. No. Also, he plays a lot with dynamics of first world, third world. Like he has a story, for instance, how Latins just come to Europe, and then when some time passes, and then at the end, this sort of power relations, how he also reimagines the German guy, no? With the blonde wig, and also here having this approach of cleaning toilets, no? Like also questioning these sort of practices. Hong Le is someone that she creates some other comment. She draws, and she asks, for instance, people to share their story. And when she becomes these stories, then she makes a draw, and then she shares these stories. No? So we also see these aspects of commonality, and also making visible some of the stories, in this case with racism. I won't be able to read that, but Also, for instance, how she highlights diversity. No? For instance, there's said all Asian look the similar or look alike. No? And she's showing a little bit of Asian woman, no? How diverse they could be. And also, as I said, now these stories of people like dealing with racism, and also at the end we see in the comments how people relate to this and how they are thankful that they can share these stories, and then they sort of create the space where this can be discussed. So. Further questions. How are we imagining a future or emergent imaginaries if we think in these content creators, if although they are also in this dynamic of platformization and playing with stereotypes, how at the end they also manage to show the complexity a little bit between not just only either or container thinking, but also having these complexities of multiplicity and multiple realities, for instance. However, and we are also seeing, of course, the internet as a way to be more radical, no? And more extreme links, extreme right, and we see this as a field of tension, right, as a field of struggle. And yeah, and at the end, I need to stop now because of the time. But I hope that with these examples, you can see also other ways of thinking the digital interculturality, and also this idea in the kind of experiment that I'm thinking. Linking of this kind of empirical example with the theories, for instance, that ReDICo is doing now. Like, yeah, okay. Thank you very much, and sorry for the time.